USPAP, page 142. Advisory Opinion 27, AO-27. This communication by the Appraisal Standards Board, ASB, does not establish new standards or interpret existing standards. Advisory opinions are issued to illustrate the applicability of appraisal standards in specific situations and to offer advice from the ASB for the resolution of appraisal issues and problems. Subject: appraising the same property for a new client. Application: real property, personal property, and intangible property. The issue: situations often arise in which appraisers who have previously appraised a property are asked by a different party to appraise the same property. In some instances, this request arises very soon after the first appraisal. In others, it may be months or years later. Under what circumstances can an appraiser accept an assignment to appraise a property for a prospective client when that appraiser has previously completed an appraisal of the same property for another client? Advice from the ASB on this issue. Relevant USPAP and advisory references. Conduct section of the ethics rule. Confidentiality section of the ethics rule. Advisory Opinion 25, which covers clarification of the client in a federally related transaction. Advisory Opinion 26, which addresses reappraising / transferring a report to another party. Advisory Opinion 36, identification and disclosure of client, intended use, and intended users. Comments: accepting the assignment from the subsequent prospective client is not prohibited by USPAP, assuming appropriate disclosure is made to the client before being engaged and any existing confidential information is handled properly. The part of the conduct section of the ethics rule that is pertinent to this matter includes the following. If known prior to accepting an assignment and / or if discovered at any time during the assignment, an appraiser must disclose to the client and in the subsequent report certification any services regarding the subject property performed by the appraiser within the 3-year period immediately preceding acceptance of the assignment as an appraiser or in any other capacity. Comment: disclosing the fact that the appraiser has previously appraised the property is permitted, except in the case when an appraiser has agreed with the client to keep the mere occurrence of a prior assignment confidential. If an appraiser has agreed with a client not to disclose that he or she has appraised a property, the appraiser must decline all subsequent assignments that fall within the 3-year period. Several parts of the confidentiality section of the ethics rule are pertinent to this matter. An appraiser must not disclose: number 1, confidential information, or 2, assignment results to anyone other than the client. An appraiser cannot disclose the results of a particular assignment performed for a particular client to anyone other than those designated by the client. However, an understanding of the definitions of assignment results, and client are key to a complete understanding of this requirement. Assignment: evaluation service that is provided by the appraiser as a consequence of an agreement with the client. Client: the party or parties who engage by employment or contract an appraiser in a specific assignment. Comment: the client may be an individual, group, or entity and may engage and communicate with the appraiser directly or through an agent. Page 143. Assignment results. An appraiser's opinions and conclusions developed specific to an assignment. As can be seen in the definitions, both the client and the assignment results are specific to an assignment. If there is a new potential client, valuation services performed for that new client would constitute a new assignment, and the assignment results would be specific to that new assignment. Therefore, acceptance and performance of the new assignment to appraise the same property would not be considered revealing the first client's assignment results to the second client, even if the value conclusions were the same. It should be noted that the value conclusion could easily be different in the effective date if the effective date or the scope of work changed in any manner. It should also be noted that USPAP requires the appraiser to provide an unbiased opinion of value to each client. Obtaining a release. As a matter of business practice, some appraisers request a release from a prior client before accepting an assignment to appraise the same property for a new client, or to disclose the assignment for the second client to the first client. However, USPAP does not require this. Also, appraisers should be aware that, in some cases, informing a client about the existence of another client and the fact that the property was appraised for that other client may not be compliant with the portion of the confidentiality section of the ethics rule, which states, an appraiser must protect the confidential nature of the appraiser-client relationship. Confidential information. In all assignments, the appraiser must comply with the confidentiality section of the ethics rule with respect to the handling of confidential information. Confidential information is defined in USPAP as information that is either identified by the client as confidential when providing it to an appraiser and that is not available from any other source, or classified as confidential or private by applicable law or regulation. The confidentiality section of the ethics rule states, an appraiser must be aware of and comply with all confidentiality and privacy laws and regulations applicable in an assignment. An appraiser must not disclose, number 1, confidential information, or 2, assignment results to anyone other than the client, parties specifically authorized by the client, state appraiser regulatory agencies, third parties as may be authorized by due process of law, and a duly authorized professional peer review committee, except when such disclosure to a committee would violate applicable law or regulation. If a prior assignment included any confidential information, its disclosure to a different client or intended user would violate the ethics rule if the information were still classified as confidential information. This includes the requirement to comply with all confidentiality and privacy laws and regulations. Client exceptions. At times, an appraiser's client may believe that his or her legitimate business interest could be harmed by that appraiser providing an appraisal of the subject property of that assignment to another client. In such cases, the client and the appraiser may stipulate in their service agreement the conditions under which the appraiser may or may not appraise the same subject property. A client involved in litigation may stipulate that the appraiser cannot appraise a subject property for the opposing party in that litigation. As another example, if an appraiser is providing the value of a property to a client who is planning to sell that property in an auction, the appraiser and client may agree that the appraiser will not appraise the same property for a party planning to participate in the bidding process. Illustrations. Example A, litigation. An appraiser performs an appraisal for a client involved in litigation and then is requested to appraise the same property for the opposing party. Is accepting the assignment for the second client prohibited by USPAP? No. Assuming appropriate disclosure is made to the client and confidential information is handled correctly. However, there are common business practices in such circumstances. Often the opposing parties each hire an appraiser to appraise the subject property, if the opposing parties do not plan to hire one appraiser jointly.